The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Rudy's Revelation.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. It is February 26, 2025. We got 33 stories to get through today, so before we get started, I just want to ask you to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment, share the podcast. And remember, you're under attack psychologically and biologically. So today we're going to be talking about the big, beautiful bill that Trump is working on and the Epstein client list, which still has not been released. So we're going to talk about those two things and much more coming up right now. First up from the New York Post, House adopts blueprint for Trump's big, beautiful agenda bill as Prez opened to Senate version. So first, the Senate version was just about the border and the military. And Trump said, I'm going to go with the House version. So the House put together their version, and it was particularly revolving around the tax cuts. Most importantly, the tax cuts for everyday people, like no tax on tips and no tax on Social Security. Other tax cuts are going to be included. But now Trump has changed his tack and said, I like the Senate version, which means he wants to combine the two versions, the Senate version, which was mostly about the border and military spending, and the House version, which was about tax relief. So if we can combine those two bills and reconcile them, that may work. My concern, of course, he always wanted the big, beautiful bill. But my concern, obviously, was making sure you get the tax cuts in there before you start spending on things like the military, which is a giveaway to the military industrial complex. So let's move on with other headlines from the Associated Press. House GOP pushes big budget resolution to passage, a crucial step toward delivering Trump's agenda. Like I said, he is going to reconcile, hopefully, these two bills. And the hope is that he's not, supposedly there's over $4 trillion in tax cuts, so that has to be made up somewhere if you're going to get to a balanced budget. Trump said he wanted to get to a balanced budget, so we'll see where that ends up. Fox News is reporting Trump budget bill extending first-term tax cuts survives House vote. The massive GOP bill would also direct $4 trillion towards raising the debt limit. So there goes the debt limit, and there goes the deficit. Now, can we pay down the deficit? Who knows? What we really need to do, what the focus should be, certainly, is jump-starting the economy. Now, when you talk about inflation, you have to understand is that GDP is more important than inflation. The higher the GDP, the less effect any inflationary pressures will have. So, you got to get, and apparently Jerome Powell and the Fed is not interested in cutting rates anytime soon until the economy gets started. So he's going to have to jumpstart the economy. That's the most important thing. So we'll see where that leads us. If there's demand, especially with investment and demand and spending, if there's a demand, you won't have inflation like you did under Biden, who just printed money and then it just sat around. Moving on with the headlines, just the news. Republican lawmakers push Attorney General Pam Bondi to release Epstein client list on the JFK assassination files as well. Okay, here's what the rumors are saying. Rumors are saying that people in the FBI are going ballistic and shredding documents left and right since Kash Patel was confirmed, and now we have Dan Bongino as deputy director. My concern is that they should have Doge with them, but they need to have some sort of integrity force going through the FBI, making sure that things aren't being destroyed. We don't know if that's going to be the case. It might just be that Kash Patel is sitting in his office going, what do I do now? Because we don't have enough seasoned people in there. So Pam Bondi, Tulsi Gabbard, and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino presumably need to get together and figure out what needs to be done to stop the destruction of evidence. What I was explaining to Perry earlier in the day was that unlike what happened with the January 6th committee, we knew they took depositions, we knew they collected evidence, and then all that evidence, which belongs to the American people, was destroyed. We don't know what kind of evidence the FBI has. So if they're selectively going through the evidence and destroying bits and pieces, we don't know if those things ever exist. We really need Doge in there to figure out what the hell is going on. There has to be some sort of integrity group going in and making sure that evidence is not destroyed, particularly and specifically with black bag operations. We need to know exactly what the FBI has been up to for the past 50 years. Nobody's worried. Everybody's worried about the Epstein client list. And although that's very important, it's not nearly as important as understanding what the FBI illicit activity, what they've been up to in these past years. The same should be said for the CIA, because the American people deserve to know, particularly with the FBI, because it's a domestic investigative bureau, supposedly. It's really a domestic intelligence operation. So we need to know what intelligence they've been collecting and what operations they've been conducting domestically in the United States. Going to Just the News story, on February 11th and February 19th, House Oversight sent a letter to the DOJ asking for the status on releasing the Epstein files as well as JFK, etc. The DOJ has not responded, and this was sent by Florida GOP Representative Anna Paulina Luna, and she posted this on X on Monday, reaching out on X because we can't seem to get a response from the Attorney General Bondi. What is the status of the documents? These documents were ordered to be declassified. Luna has been selected to lead a new congressional task force that will be reportedly be looking into not only the assassinations, but also into files related to terrorist attacks on September 11th, thank God, and the Epstein client list. There's a lot more to look at. I mean, I'm glad they're going to look at September 11th. That definitely needs a study. But there have been a lot of other domestic operations that need to be unwound. The Boston bombing being one of them, certainly. But all the activities of the FBI over the past 50 years need to be addressed. Washington Times is reporting top GOP senators call on justice officials to investigate potential criminal FBI leaks to the media. Like I said, the FBI is a domestic intelligence or security service. Certainly, they're working against the American people, and more egregiously, working against our elected officials, most notably President Trump. More news from the New York Post. Trump axes security clearances for law firm attorneys who aided special counsel Jack Smith. And as he was signing that executive order, he said, I just want to savor this. So me and Perry, first of all, I got to apologize for not last night, not having a Tuesdays with Perry episode. We couldn't quite connect. I was a little tired and couldn't muster the energy to have an episode. So we're going to try to do it tonight, another Wednesday's edition of Tuesdays with Perry. But we were discussing last night a little bit about the Jack Smith thing and just basically the deep state. And the deep state, let's just call it the federal bureaucracy, is 65% Democrat or progressive. So is that an accurate number? I'm not quite sure. But imagine the weight of this deep state bureaucracy, what it holds, and what kind of power it can muster to obstruct elected officials' work. So the thing is, too, is that the Democrat machine and all its activists, etc., they work coordinated. So they hear from the top and it filters down what they need to do, what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm going to get to these orders in just a second. More news from the administration. Financial Times is reporting Ukraine agrees to minerals deal with U.S. Kiev hopes agreement on jointly exploring resources will improve relations with the Trump administration. Jointly? Well, I don't know if it's going to be jointly exploring. The reality around something like this is you lease the mines or the resources, the area where the resources are located, you lease that land to the extraction company who will then explore and extract. I don't know if you're going to do it jointly. If they had the wherewithal to extract the minerals, they would have been doing it already. It's the same thing where oil companies go to other countries because the other countries don't have the wherewithal to extract the oil, and the oil companies do. And then they ship it usually here to be refined later. So if you didn't hear, French President Macron visited the White House recently, and he said the arrival of President Trump is a game changer. He has the capacity to re-engage with Russia, and this is from Real Clear Politics. This is actually really great news that Europe is starting to thaw to the idea that Trump's in charge, and they can't do much in terms of defense without the United States. They have relied on the United States military umbrella for some time, and now going it alone, even if they have an alliance of European countries align their military using NATO minus the United States, which they can't really do because the United States runs NATO for all intents and purpose. So they're thawing to the idea that if Trump decides we're going to end this war, there's no way for Europe to carry on. They're blustering like they would, and they certainly would love to engage in false flag activities to get the war rolling again. So watch for that. But it looks likely now that Europe is thawing to the idea for cessation of hostilities for the time being. You know, when Trump gets out of office, if the Democrats get back in, there's going to be a U-turn. PJ Media is reporting, could Trump get a Nobel Peace Prize for the deal with Ukraine? And this is what PJ Media poses this question. Do you think Trump could get the Peace Prize? Well, they awarded the Peace Prize to Barack Obama when he was engaged in conflict. I don't know how that happened. So, do you think the people in Brussels will award Donald Trump a peace prize? I doubt it. Because should he get it? Of course. Righteous are the peacemakers. Just the News is reporting Trump throws his support behind Keystone XL pipeline and other projects to unleash American energy. So the Keystone and the other pipeline projects, including several on the East Coast that Joe Biden killed, may be restarted. Now, the thinking behind this is especially the Keystone XL, it's really large project. Can they finish it in 4 years? What happened is they started it and then they had to end it. So, and like the Biden administration with the wall, they start dismantling what they had accomplished. So it's whether or not the investors want to go through with the pipeline. I think Trump can get them in line. And I think that's the best way to go, is to get all the pipeline projects greenlit. Fox News is reporting President Trump reportedly took 1,009 questions in his first month, 7 times more than Biden. It took Trump only 3 days to eclipse the 141 questions former President Biden took in his first month, according to the report. Now, and what kind of questions? If you look at the Trump press conferences, they're a real presser, which means you have a diverse array of media outlets, and he asks whoever he wants to ask, or he will address any question that they're willing to posit to some degree. Some he won't, but he's open to questions, unlike how many open press conferences did Joe Biden have? They had some orchestrated ones where he called on reporters where he knew the questions ahead of time, and he knew the people that were going to ask softball questions. But that's not Trump. Trump will take any question. Like I said, for the most part, there are people that, they start down a road and he goes, I'm not taking your question, you're fake news. TJ Media is reporting Trump team rolls stink bomb into the White House press room, and it's glorious. What are they talking about here? They're talking about Carolyn Leavitt announced that the White House Correspondents Association, the WHCA, will no longer oversee who gets a seat in the press room. Instead, from now on, the White House communications staff will be in charge. I worked in journalism. I hated these elite organizations who decided who gets to cover. So these organizations like the White House Correspondents Association were made up of corporate interest. So, and I'm going to get into Joy Reid in just a second, but this is a problem, because corporations shouldn't dictate who gets access to whom and what questions get answered. It's more a corporate fascism. If you control the people asking the question and you control the person giving the answer, you can easily weave the narrative, which, of course, has been troubling over the years. Hold on a second. Yeah. I just wanted to move a story around here because it wasn't really fitting into what we were talking about. Because if you hadn't heard, Tucker Carlson and Dan Crenshaw got into a thing, and we're going to talk about that, but it fits more into the resistance than it does into the Trump agenda. So the next headline is from the Post Millennial. Trump requires all healthcare providers, insurers to publicly disclose cost of services. The department will ensure hospitals and insurers disclose actual prices, not estimates. So this is a good thing to all the left that are protesting against healthcare, rightfully so. But the healthcare industry and insurers and hospitals and healthcare providers should have interest in helping the people they serve, their patients, understand what they're doing and how much it's going to cost. And I would also say Robert F. Kennedy should get into the mix and say everybody should have to propose alternative avenues of treatment. So if you're a pharmaceutical company or if you're a doctor in the pocket of the pharmaceutical companies, sure, you could tell your patient, oh, you're suffering from this. You could take this pharmaceutical, or you could, if you don't want to take pharmaceuticals, you should do X, Y, Z. I think that would fit into Maha very nicely. So moving on to the Federalist here, the bureaucratic defiance of Elon Musk's simple email requests are proving the case for Doge cuts. And what they're talking about here in the Federalist is if you ask somebody a question and there's avoidance, that is a behavioral pattern. So I do this to my wife all the time. It's like, why did you do this and that? Why are you getting on my back about everything? It's just a question. Why did you behave this way? That's it. And so behavior, and many people know this, behavior is the key to what motivates people. So if you're avoiding sending an email, a vague email, and it's a pulse check. So like I said yesterday, even if you send in an email and go, well, I'm working on some classified stuff, but I'm here and I'm working. If you need further detail, my supervisor is blah. Simple. What does that take? 30 seconds? Or if you want to do the 5 bullet points, you could do the 5 bullet points. But refusing altogether, if you become indignant, that borders on insubordination. Just asking a question. So when people are asked questions and they, dance around giving a full answer, or they protest the question, then there's, I wouldn't say cause for alarm, but certainly cause to push further. All right, enough with that. This is even more important. The Washington Post is reporting the anti-Trump resistance begins to wake in earnest. Now, what does this mean? What is this? This is a story by Naftali Ben David and Maeve Reston. Little by little, after an initial phase of stunned confusion, the broader resistance to Trump is beginning to wake up. I got to stop right there. Trying to wake up. The majority of the electorate, the people that came over and voted for Trump, have been inoculated for 8 years against attacks on Trump that turn out either to be unjustified or flat out lies. So it's the old adage of crying wolf. If you cry wolf, and we'll get to this in just a second, if there's a media organization or a media personality who lies continuously, why should you trust them? You don't. It's only the blue Kool-Aid drinkers who just tell me what to believe. Tell me what to believe. Those people will believe anything from anyone as long as it's not Trump or the, nasty Republicans. Because they've been indoctrinated into an ideology that believes we're right, they're wrong, always believe us, never believe them. And it's gone even further than that. Don't even listen to them. And that's well, you can't have a democracy when you're not listening to what someone is saying. All right. There is a lot of anger building, such that we are seeing in deep red Republican held districts that people are coming out, says Faiz Shakur, Sanders' chief political advisor. I guess it's Bernie Sanders. Yes, Bernie Sanders. They are surprising those Republican members of Congress who don't expect that when they try to defend Elon Musk, they will get an aggressive booing. You couldn't manufacture this if you tried. Now, this is in the CIA's Washington Post. When they say you couldn't manufacture this, they understand that people know that they're manufacturing this. And that's what we found out, that the people that showed up at these Republican town halls booing were actual plants. The people that protest the loudest are suspect. The article goes on to say Ezra Levin, a co-executive director of the progressive group Indivisible, said his group has grown roughly from 1,000 local groups to 1,500. Local groups. Activists from Move On organized 60 events last week, including protests outside the offices of Republican House members, some drawing several hundred participants. Okay, we need to stop again right there. Because, okay, groups. What, you mean like NGOs? Now, NGOs could be under the umbrella group of the Soros Foundation, whatever that is, whatever his foundation is. He has that big NGO. And so their umbrella group, that's an umbrella group, and under that you have different NGOs. Or you could be under USAID, or you could be under other shell companies. It doesn't matter. You have all this money filtering down. The Open Society Foundation. So their Open Society Foundation, the source, the money trickles down into these NGOs, and a lot of this money isn't tracked. So they say activists from Move On organized 60 events that included protests outside the offices of the Republican House members, some drawing several hundred participants. Well, that's wonderful, but this is all manufactured. They just said you couldn't manufacture this if you tried. But MoveOn.org just organized 60 events last week. So that is manufactured, is it not? Because you draw on your members. I don't want to digress too much. So there was OFA, Organizing for America, or Obama for America, which was a large organizing group which specifically taught activists how to work, how to take action. And so that filtered down to other groups, which filtered down into other groups. I think OFA, as it were, was disbanded. But so the activists are called up, or they're rounded up via X or Twitter or Mastodon or whatever, come out into the street, and only the ardent activists will go out, the most fervent. And so you get a couple hundred, whatever. But it's not like January 6th where you got 1 million people turning out, hundreds of thousands. So they go on to say the opposition to Trump arose immediately after his election, but has become far more visible in recent days because of the manufacturer. We have been seeing a surge of energy we haven't seen since 2017. It's now becoming more visible beyond the community centers, the living rooms. It's now in the public eye because they're beating people into the streets, figuratively. So this is the issue. It's if people have it front of mind or are itching to get off the couch, like during the Arab Spring, all they had to do was have a tweet come over from somebody they assumed was a friend, they'd get out in the street because they were itching to go. Now they basically have to pay people, bribe people, or only get their most fervent knuckleheads in there. Goes on to say this year's resistance has taken a different form than it did in 2017. Exactly, because they have less people willing to come out. When celebrities issued emotional statements and opponents launched mass street protests, they don't have the masses this time. This time, the president's adversaries are aiming their fire more selectively, directing political and legal attacks against specific Trump policies they believe are both damaging and unpopular. They're trying. They're trying. It's not succeeding. Originally, when Trump was a relative unknown, you can demonize someone who's unknown. Trump, for better or for worse, is known. He was president for 4 years. He was relentlessly attacked for 4 years. And now he's president again. He's known. It's not like, in 2015 where, oh, that's the guy from, what was his show? He had that television show, The Apprentice. Oh, that's the guy from The Apprentice, right? Oh, yeah, okay. They didn't know him. And they liked him if they knew him from The Apprentice. And then they go, oh, the guy from The Apprentice is a racist and he's a terrible person. Oh, okay. That worked for maybe even 8 years, 4 or 5 years, 6 years. Doesn't work anymore. PJ Media is reporting flailing Democrats turn to yet another once effective technique. The art of designating a victim with a sob story for the media counterparts to blast everywhere 24/7 in an attempt to turn public opinion their way. This method has been in the past spotlighted as alleged victims of racism, police brutality, homophobia, and immigration policy, you name it. If the Democrats are trying to change a law or custom, they will find a sad-faced poster victim around whom they rally effort. It's the practical application of maybe Stalin's proclamation that a single death is a tragedy, a million death is a statistic. They are grabbing at straws, and those straws are the arrows in their quiver that they're used to using. The electorate has been inoculated against the cry wolf attacks against Donald Trump. Donald Trump is bad. Donald Trump is bad. Donald Trump. Now they're going, well, Donald Trump isn't bad. Donald Trump's policies are bad. Or they're fixating on Elon Musk now. They found that that's a kink in the armor, so to speak, that they could level tax, not against Trump, because people are inoculated against those attacks, someone next to Trump, so Elon Musk. But this PJ Media article goes on to say, today, U.S. Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, oh, she's the worst, joined Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries and House Democrats in announcing a new effort to hear directly from Americans harmed by the Trump administration. He's only been in office a month. Who's harmed? And the pair in a statement said, if you lost your job, been denied important services, or face other impacts because of Donald Trump and Elon Musk's extreme, illegal, and unconstitutional actions, we need to hear directly from you, they say. Are they extreme? I don't think they're extreme. I think they're needed. Maybe extreme. They're certainly not illegal. And are they unconstitutional? I don't think so. As long as the appropriated funding goes where it's supposed to go, you can get around those sort of accusations. The problem is if Congress appropriated money for X, and I don't mean X, the social media platform, I just mean an agency, if you make sure that those funds are delivered in some way, you could get around it. All right. So we beaten to death Joy Reid and her. We knew she was going to be let go, and she's been let go. And the post-millennial has this story. Rachel Maddow suggests racism is at play in cancellation of Joy Reid's show. Both of our non-white hosts in prime time are losing their shows, and that feels worse than bad. First of all, Rachel Maddow sucks and Joy Reid sucks. They're both propagandists. They're not interested in reporting the news. Just the facts, ma'am. That's what the news is. Now, in a show like hers or in Sean Hannity or whatever, you could put your opinion in there, I guess. But they're not even basing, they're not like, here's a fact. This is what I think of the fact. That's what I do on this show. Here's what's reported. Here's what I think about it. But they don't even correctly characterize the facts they're reporting. She says, I think it's racism that these black hosts were fired. They're not fired. The extreme speaking, Joy Reid is directly responsible for the first assassination attempt on Donald Trump. I believe. If she kept calling Donald Trump a fascist and the next Hitler, if someone believed her opinion, they might try to kill Donald Trump. There's a simple correlation can be drawn there. So she was probably fired because she was way off base. If you believe that, that's one thing. If you have a television show and you're telling your audience that, completely something else. Like I said, if you said all that on a Twitter post, but she said it on the air, Twitter post, an X post. All right, let's get down to the crux of the matter. So the Federalist is reporting how to make yourself invincible to media info ops. Now, when we say info ops, we mean specifically corporate propaganda, media info ops. I think that's putting it lightly. So the Federalist says the most important thing to understand is not how the media deploy info ops, but simply that they do it. That's what I say all the time. You can't trust people that lie to you because they're lying to you for a specific purpose. There's a motivation behind it. So if someone lies to you from the their job as a person that's supposedly working for a news organization, lie to you or mischaracterize things that are reported, you should never trust them again. Even if they get fired and they go to social media. And what I surmised yesterday, that they're firing Joy Reid so she could become more of an online presence to combat the army of online conservatives who are pumping out stories and narratives. Whatever you hear from corporate media, the Federalist goes on to say, you should assume until proven otherwise that the opposite is probably true. Indeed, this small act of caution, this small act of caution will save you untold embarrassment as you wisely do some vetting before joining the latest panic. That's everything about news that you need to know. And that's why I say read the news, because you need to read the whole story, because a lot of the time, places like the New York Times will put important information, which should be at the top. They'll put it down below, which a lot of times contradicts what their assumption about the facts are. And the Federalist goes on, they posted on X 61 hacks who peddled Russian collusion and should never be trusted again. And then it has a list of not just media personalities, but also politicians. And Navarro, it also has Sean Hannity on here. I think I saw Sean Hannity, right? Regardless, if people aren't telling the truth, then don't listen to them. And I don't watch TV news. I think I watch like Jesse Waters, Gutfeld, and The Five. And I like The Five, the kind of roundtable thing. And it's like, you know, you have to look at it like with a little bit of humor, but always separate opinion from the facts that are being reported. Speaking of not trusting the media, the Mirror, I think this is the UK Mirror, is reporting Nazi saluting Elon Musk mocked in huge advert for Tesla swastika. An edited image of Elon Musk has been spotted plastered over a bus stop with the words Tesla the swastika. It comes after campaigners have questioned whether he recently gestured a Nazi salute. Well, you know what's up with this, right? As I mentioned previously, people have been inoculated against Trump attacks. So they're attacking Elon Musk. Elon Musk isn't doing anything wrong. He's looking and suggesting. And he's suggesting to the rest of the Doge staff to send out notices to people who don't seem to be working. So they label him a Nazi. I don't think Elon Musk is a Nazi. Does anyone know what National Socialism is? He's not a National Socialist. Even people in Germany during the Second World War, they weren't all Nazis. My dad fought for Germany in the Second World War. He avoided fighting, I should say. But he wasn't a Nazi. He had brothers in the military. They weren't Nazis. I mean, Elon Musk is not a Nazi. Is he a fascist? I don't know. You know, I don't like the public-private partnership of government and business. You know, you have to respect individual liberties. And if you do that, we're good. You can do all the crazy business you want to do. I'm an environmentalist, so I don't want you to pollute while you do it. I'm not going to digress into what fascism is, whether it's occurring. I mean, it's been part of the United States political landscape for some time. I think corporations need to be cut down to size, their political influence. That would fix the problem. All right, let's get into Dan Crenshaw. Texas Republican Dan Crenshaw denies hot mic moment, saying he would fucking kill Tucker Carlson. This is from One American News. What we understand here is that he did say it. People have the recording. And now his staff says he didn't mean it, or he used it figuratively. So Tucker Carlson was trying to get Dan Crenshaw on his program. Nobody likes Dan Crenshaw. He is a neocon, and so he isn't really a conservative. He is a construct, much like AOC or the Squad members. They were molded by the CIA to be what they are, which are establishment hacks, acting like they are proponents for what their party platform is. Yeah, we need authentic individuals. That's why people like Trump. He's authentic. Just come out. You can speak your mind, But I don't know how Crenshaw keeps getting elected. He's not, we don't need war hawks. It's okay if you want to build up a military, but, you know, I don't know. You want to build up the military, you want to be strong and powerful, but you don't want to use it. Next headline from Fox News. John Ratcliffe shrugs off concerns about potential threat of fired agents armed with CIA secrets. Another unnamed source. You're telling me that a professional setback could cause people to risk the consequences of treason, which the punishment is death. So, a source familiar with director John Ratcliffe's thinking says. So this bothers me too. It's like an unnamed source is is speculating how the director thinks. All these people, first and foremost, you need to be patriotic and in the sense nationalistic, in the sense that your main concern is not the United States government, not the deep state, not the establishment, not the intelligence organization, not intelligence organizations as a whole, not a globalist intelligence alliance like the Club of Bern. You should be worried about the Republic of the United States, which is a nation state governed by the people for the people. So your end allegiance is to the American citizen. And that's what Trump has been trying to drum into people's heads. It's not the government, it's the American people. And so what they want right now is transparency. And then if we need to worry about national security in terms of classifying documents, etc., we'll look at that. But keeping shit that of an event, keeping shit secret that an event that happened 70 years ago, that shouldn't happen. The article goes on to say CNN reported on Monday that mass firings and buyouts offered to agents were under discussion among CIA top leadership, who were apparently worried that losing their jobs might prompt disgruntled former officers to take their classified intelligence to foreign intelligence services like those of China or Russia. So you mean do an about face. The point is, if they were planning to do that, they were probably already compromised. If you're involved in protecting the United States, and like I said, that means the Republic and the citizens of this country, that was your task, and now you're fired, so you're going to do about face and harm the Republic and the people, the citizens of the United States. Shouldn't have been there in the first place. And besides, people that are fired from intelligence services go through a debrief. And I would hope that are surveilled for a certain amount of time. You know what I mean? Because they would face treasonous charges as well. So you're not just rolling the dice to see if these folks are going to honor their secrecy agreement and not volunteer to a hostile intelligence service. Yeah, if they're anti-Trumpers, they would. And we see that all the time. One American News is reporting DHS Secretary Noem says she discovered some of ICE officials tipping off illegals about deportation plans. They will be fired. Oh my God. I mean, Jesus. This is what I mean. It's people that are unloyal to the Republic, to the citizens of the United States, not the government, but to the mission. The mission is to defend and protect citizens of the United States and the Republic at large. The idea of the Republic, not the democracy, the Republic. So you have to, it has to be a democratic republic, because a democracy is a process that gives you a robust republic. So I can't believe that. So there are people that hate Trump that are in these agencies that are Democrats that are disloyal to the mission to begin with. So again, if you're going to fire some of these people, they're going to have to be surveilled for a certain amount of time. ICE, not as much as CIA, but you know what I mean. They're enemies of the Republic. The ICE members that leaked information to illegals that compromise the mission of ICE, which was where they worked, are enemies of the Republic. So the Daily Dot is reporting Russian hackers extend olive branch to new FBI director Kash Patel, but he probably shouldn't take him up on it. And basically it says supposed Russian hackers reached out to Kash Patel, said the agency is full of bad people. You should do this, that, and the other thing. How do we know it's Russian? It could be the CIA. It might very well be the CIA. So you make it sound like it's Russian, so you distrust it. And then you have the Russians say that the FBI is bad. So you distrust what you think is Russian, and they're saying the FBI is bad. So adversely, you think the FBI is good, so you won't take the action that you plan on taking. Sounds like the CIA to me. The FBI, if it's not disbanded, it certainly needs reform, cut wide and deep. Because what the FBI was involved in was sinister. For the most part, I'm not saying that they didn't go out and police XYZ, and a lot of the agents did traditional law enforcement or investigative mission. But a lot of the other stuff was dastardly. So if you didn't hear about this, this has not been confirmed. One American News is reporting Texas rancher and U.S. citizen killed by cartel IED, which is improvised explosive device, along U.S.-Mexico border. And this was reported by the Texas Agriculture Department. 75-year-old rancher Antonio Zespides Zalderna and a U.S. citizen Horatio Lopez Pena were killed in Tamaulipas, Mexico, just south of Brownsville, Texas. Additionally, Lopez's wife was also injured in the blast. The explosive device reportedly detonated while Zalderna was driving through his ranch, according to KRGV Channel 5. So this hasn't been corroborated. I can't speak on the veracity of this report, but it would certainly mean, and I imagine it is, that the cartels are going to step up violence, particularly in Mexico, now that special forces are involved, drone surveillance are involved, and the Mexican government said that they were going to do something about the cartels. More in international news, the Post-Millennial is reporting Christina Freeland says she's running for prime minister to stop Trump from invading Canada. A few weeks ago in Saskatoon, I met 4-year-old girl named Ari. She asked me, can you stop Trump from invading Canada? So Christina Freeland is a globalist. She's a World Economic Forum young leader who Klaus Schwab referred to when he said the governments have been infiltrated by WEF members. He penetrated the government. She was talking specifically about Chrystia Freeland and to some degree, Justin Trudeau, but mostly Chrystia Freeland. And she is you thought Trudeau was bad. She is the power behind the throne, or she was before she was fired. She's one of the worst of the worst. Or international news, Zero Hedges reporting Kyle Bass sounds alarm over China's insane battlefield asymmetries in the U.S. land ownership realm. I thought I had text from that. So, hedge fund manager Kyle Bass is often and has often complained about the amount of land that the Chinese Communist Party is acquiring in the United States, particularly around U.S. military bases. As I mentioned plenty of times before, China, Communist China, and others, but Communist China is preparing for war against the United States. Where's that other article? Yeah, I had another article here about it mysteriously disappeared. I don't know where it lost in transit, but there was other article about an unannounced live fire drill around the island of Taiwan by the Chinese Communist Party. And so Taiwan scrambled jets and readied their military because they didn't know whether it was an invasion or not. So that happened just yesterday as well. Other news from the Daily Mail, doctors sound alarm as measles outbreak in Texas surges to 124 cases, becoming biggest cluster in decades. Yes, since the Hawaii outbreak. And I keep going back to this. So in Hawaii, there was an outbreak in a village. They came to the village to inoculate children against measles. 2 infants died. And so people started swearing off and talking smack about vaccines. And so miraculously, a measles outbreak and became a very popularized story in the media. And miraculously, a measles outbreak occurred. So is this a contrived occurrence? Measles is very virulent, and so you could infect one person and it could spread around. The idea of this, because it's near the border, is illegal immigrants come into the country that have been infected with measles and they spread it around. Amongst other illegal immigrants who have not been vaccinated against measles. But they try to take this and they try to say, oh, RFK Jr. is going to speak bad about vaccines, and now we're going to have problems in the United States. That's not how this is related. Realistically, people have been scared off by vaccines, by autism for one thing, but also because of the COVID mishap, which they claimed it was more effective than it was. More health news, NBC News, Utah set to become first state to ban fluoride in public water. A bill awaiting the governor's signature would prohibit adding fluoride to public water systems. Thank God. I wish we could do that here. So they don't have fluoride in Europe. And they don't have a lot of stuff we have here in the United States. It's part of the public health crisis. So don't drink fluoridated water. And don't give it to your children, particularly. It's a dumbing down thing. They do all this. Drinking fluoride doesn't help your teeth. If you put it on your teeth, it could help your teeth. But if you drink it, if you ingest it, how does that help your teeth? No doctor has been able to clarify that for me. Religion Unplugged has this headline: after years of decline, Christianity's growth in the U.S. remains stable. Stable. This is great news. I'll just get into the story. For the first time in decades, a new study shows that the proportion of Americans identifying as Christian has stopped its long-term decline, holding steady at 62%. Meanwhile, the number of religiously unaffiliated individuals, still high, has leveled off after decades of growth. And then it does the breakdown: Protestant, Catholic, etc. 19% believe in nothing as particular, 6% agnostic, 5% atheist. Well, that's a good sign. So agnostic means you believe there's something, you don't know what it is. Atheist believes that there's absolutely nothing, no metaphysical higher intelligence. And 19%, nothing in particular. What does that even mean? Realistically, I will say that people that bash religion, I bash organized religion, but what you have to understand is there is a metaphysical truth that we don't understand. And it's unlikely that anybody could understand it. However, you have to take that metaphysical fact and pair it with some organized thought process around that. So that's what I did. Before I became a Christian, I was open and still am open. But it's the idea of whether you believe in Messiah prophecy and whether Jesus historically existed and whether he was the Messiah or the Christos, as the Greeks would say, and what that means metaphysically. So, like the Gnostics talked about the metaphysical idea of the Messiah and whether it was historized in the existence of Jesus, which I believe is true. But I have some might consider heretical beliefs as far as Christ is concerned, certainly the Catholics, but I'm not going to digress any further. What you should do is explore religion on your own, understand what your belief is, and what exactly religion talks about. What exactly are they talking about? I would always advise people to read religious texts. That's why if you read, you'll get to the point. If you watch shit on TV or on YouTube or whatever, it's never going to be, you're never going to get the insight you'll get from reading. Daily Mail is reporting culprit behind disturbing government TV hack of Trump kissing Elon Musk's toes revealed. I don't have time for that. So they found out it was a HUD employee who took this AI image or video of Trump supposedly kissing Elon Musk's feet, and they put it on all the TV monitors at the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. So a HUD employee did this, a disgruntled HUD employee. That's what I said. When you work for the government, you work for the republic. You work for the American citizen. I don't care if you don't like Trump. He's your commander in chief. I mean, if you were working in the corporate sphere and a CEO came in that you didn't like, you wouldn't sabotage the company or sabotage the CEO. That would be grounds for dismissal. And in this instance, you could even be brought up on criminal charges. So you might have seen the video here. This is Mediaite reporting Jon Stewart slices his hand open during a live broadcast while tearing into Elon Musk's Doge cuts. We're getting fucked. All right, so Mediaite used to report on media, but they're so left-wing, it's not Look at the clip. He's talking about how this never would have happened if Joe Biden wasn't so fucking bad. If the Democrats and if the establishment weren't so fucking bad, this wouldn't have to be done. But the gravy train of the federal spending is done. And people were living on that for a long time. So I'm sorry. I like Jon Stewart. I'm sorry he cut his hand. I hope he's okay. But calm the fuck down, dude. This had to happen. So he, to be fair to Jon Stewart, he went off and said, cut the military, cut this, cut gasoline subsidies, oil company subsidies. That's what makes your gas cheaper, asshole. So you want gas to be more expensive. And there's certainly something to be said for subsidies for domestic oil exploration. Now, some of the other stuff he got into, it's debatable. You want to cut stuff? Great. You want to cut subsidies or budgets? I'll listen. But subsidizing, the refinement of gasoline, for instance. Joe Biden sold all of our strategic oil reserves. No comment, Jon Stewart? All right, more Democrats. New York Post is reporting Dalton dictator Tiffany Henyard destroyed in Dem primary following scandal-filled mayoral term. If you didn't know who this person was, she was elected a small town outside of Chicago, the troubled Illinois village led by Dalton dictator Mayor Tiffany Henyard spent more than $43,000 in Amazon purchases in a single day, even as the municipality's finances were in shambles. Dalton also spent big bucks on out-of-state trips. All right, hold on one second. Sorry about that. Do we have power? There we go. All right, back to the news. More Democrats. Colorado spent over $7 million on deceased Medicaid recipients. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services audit shows. So this is the problem with the Democrats. They keep bitching and moaning about Elon Musk getting into Medicaid and he's going to take your Medicaid check. Yeah, if you're receiving it illegitimately. So Colorado spent over $7 million on deceased Medicaid recipients. So they're dead. Who was getting those checks? Those checks were cashed. So these audits are very important. Is that it? Wow. All right, went a little over. It was about an hour and 5 minutes. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Check out the Liberty merch, link in the description. It's to the Alex Jones store. If you buy through that link, I get a couple bucks. So the hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts. Check me out on social media, X, Facebook, Getter Minds, Truth Social, Substack. Check out my other website, libpop.org. Learn about libertarian populism. Thanks so much for joining me today. Tonight, we're going to have a Wednesday edition of Tuesdays with Perry. So I was talking with Perry this morning, so we'll have that. So stay tuned. We usually go live at 9:15. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for joining me today. See you later. Respect.
This is all a conspiracy, don't you know that it's a conspiracy?
You're crazy. I like you. But you're crazy.